Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio. Discover your spiritual gifts live.
Welcome to Discover Your Spiritual Gifts show number 75. We're your hosts, Dave and
Vialet.
Today our guest is Tracee Dunblazier, who is a GC-C, a grief counselor certified, and she's a Los Angeles-based spiritual empath, shaman, and 9-time national award-winning author. As a multi-sensitive, Tracee's blend of intuitive information combined with different modalities has provided the opportunity for thousands to achieve deep healing and create the success and peace they seek in their lives. In 2015, Tracee founded GoTracee Publishing LLC. It has since grown to be a nationally awarded hybrid publisher that specializes in spiritual healing memoirs and divination oracle decks, tools for meditation and self-discovery. Their best-selling Demon Slayer's Handbook series and Rainbow Warrior Activation deck offer light in dark places. They are game changers for those who suffer. Well, welcome, Tracee. Thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, you got a passion. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and just so you know, my book Conquer Your Karmic Relationships had such a good year last year that I'm now up to I'm a 20-time award-winning author.
Yay! Congratulations. Good for you. I hope you have lots of sales out of that. Well, I was going to ask you about your background. You're very multi-talented, multi-gifted. How did you get started? Were you like some of us who started as children, or did you discover it later on?
No, I was born psychic and empathic, and deeply aware of my ability, but not. I don't know how to say it. I was very much my own separate world. I had a lot of spiritual wisdom that I came in with. And so I just really knew to not talk about it with people. Like that was the appropriate thing growing up in the 70s and 80s, was to not really talk about it with others. So it was something that I had all these experiences. Nighttime, I would have dreams. I was demonically challenged all the time. I had a lot of past life trauma. Spiritual trauma that I was going over and over in my dream life. And then I would, during the day, have a regular childhood. And it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles, and finally, I think somebody asked me if I did readings, and I revealed that I did. And then it snowballed from that point into having my own company and starting a private practice in this way. And then several years into that, I became a grief counselor because I recognized that in working with people, usually in the metaphysical world, people come to us oftentimes because they don't have other outlets, and they're always working through some sort of traumatic event, whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical, and that grief is a part of that transition. And so I wanted to get that deliberate certification to build on the education that I have.
Well, a lot of stuff you just alluded to, you're challenged by demons, and you have a Demon Slayer's Handbook series. So tell us more about challenging by demons. I do a lot of entity and energy clearing. I've been doing it for close to 15 years. And man, there's a lot of them out there. What did you run into as a child? Was this a training exercise for you, or did you seriously have some family stuff attacking?
Both. I think that I interestingly enough, I haven't actually done specific work on this specific lifetime, but I had a lifetime in the Vatican. Okay. And I think that it began there. Because the demons that I was challenged, I mean, there are multi-levels. There are different, as you know, everybody has demons from their past traumas. These demons were very archetypal, very biblical looking things that might have been described in the Bible. uh, attacking me, coming and sitting on me, and in the middle of the night as a 4-year-old in the bed, and that like that, and just being witness to them, and I found myself automatically going into the Lord's Prayer. Okay. We were not a religious family. In fact, my father was atheist. My mother, I don't know that she wasn't a believer, but she grew up, I was baptized Methodist, and she grew up Methodist, but didn't have a real strong belief system in any way. And I was deeply, not religious, but deeply spiritual, and had a great reverence to the Creator and love of Jesus and love of all of the ascended masters. And I knew that because I think I had multiple religious backgrounds, spiritually speaking. But I already knew how to handle demonic energies. Like as a child, I felt the fear, but I was able to work through the fear on my own. That was already ingrained in me. So.
How would you describe a demonic energy, Tracee? Because I can imagine people listening are like, what is that? What is she talking about? How what would be your description and definition of that? And I know Dave talks about attachments, and I don't think people really understand what we're talking about. So let's define that a little bit so they understand. Absolutely.
Well, so when we use the word demon, we really are talking about a biblical construct. And so so no other religion calls them demons. There are attachments, there are constructs of sin, if you will, like, so the nature of gluttony, the nature of lust, the nature of, hatred is one of them. So you have constructs that energy is nurtured over and over, and it literally becomes an entity. Then there are actual demons that come from biblical description, and then the 2000 plus years of people nurturing those energies, and those are thousands of years old, beyond just religion. There are demonic energies that are known, and so they are nurtured, if you will. They're given energy by people reading about them, knowing about them, participating with them. But rarely do people do battle with those. Right? Did I make it?
Sort of. A little bit.
Any sense?
Well, and people listening don't understand is if you believe it, you give it energy, you enhance it, right? There's a lot about, I could say this bottle is this energy, and if you believe it, it is. And if you don't believe it, it isn't. And so it's kind of the same thing with these beings or energies. We've given them energy.
It absolutely is. But I will say this. Because one of the things that I talk about in my first book, it's called Master Your Inner World, it's the first of the series, is that just because you don't believe in demons don't mean they don't exist. Because they do. And some people, the more right? The more people resist, if you have fear of that paradigm, then it exists for you. And you're just in resistance to it. That means you have something in your space, in your ancestry, in your karma that needs to be addressed. Now, the good news is that regardless of what you believe, if you find yourself in a situation where you do battle, doing battle means something very specific. Demons will attack, or any construct will attack you in where you are vulnerable. So if you have a belief about yourself, a self-loathing, something that if you think you're stupid or you're fat or you're ugly or whatever sort of self-loathing thing that you have about yourself, the demon is going to amplify that and speak about it and make you try to feel bad about it, create guilt, shame, anger, all of those, any of those emotions will connect you to the entity that can only amplify that energy in you. So a demon can't hurt you. A demon gets you to hurt yourself by staying in a chaotic space.
I run into that when I coach people. I have a mentoring program to teach other people how to do energy clearings. And part of the work is we need to help you clear out your vulnerabilities because I say, especially, if you've been abused as a child, what do you think that demon's going to see in you and show you and twang you with? They're going to divert your energy and your thinking.
Yes, that is absolutely true. They're going to get you. They know your secrets. That's the thing, is they know energetically what's going on with you. Even if you have never voiced it to another human, they see it, they know it. And that's what people find terrifying. And when they are terrified, they go into stasis and they feel disempowered. They're not disempowered, but they feel disempowered. And so anyone who has that challenge, they are required to face that fear and move through it. Say no, stop it, leave me alone. It's all about different levels of setting boundaries.
Well, one of the things that I talk to people, because I also coach a lot of people on spiritual growth, and I just say, one of the most empowering and liberating things you can do is to go into a meditation, stand in front of all the spiritual beings who are involved with you, your guides, archangels, whatever, and essentially just say, I give you guys full permission to acknowledge what's in me, because I have to finally admit, as a spiritually advanced adult person, that there's nothing you don't know about me. So I might as well quit pretending that I know something you don't know, because they know it all. Now let's put it on the table and let's discuss it and move beyond it. Exactly.
I did. Rarely do you actually, I've done quite a few deliverances that are pretty dramatic. But that's not common. And especially today, there's so many other types of constructs and, spirits that are lost that just get attached to people, that kind of thing. But I did this deliverance one time. And oh my God, there were three of us. And we were with a woman. Her life, she had a regular job, and then she was the high priestess of a coven. And so this was commonplace for her. And this was my first big deliverance. And we all met at her house. The woman that was afflicted she was trying to kill herself. The entity was getting her to try to drink Drano. Anyway, we brought her in, and the three of us sat there. We got our tools ready. We got our coffee, our pot of coffee, and our special creamer. It was like sitting around in somebody's living room all night long from like 1 a.m. until like 6 a.m, but just chewing the fat, just chatting until occasionally this thing would speak through her and curse and call her a whore and like all of these different things to get her to feel guilty and ashamed, which kept her in that low place where she did not feel empowered with it. And so our job in that moment was to be her bridge. And at one point, I forgot what the entity said to the high priestess, but I will never forget. She had a cigarette in her mouth and a cup of coffee in the other. And she turns and she looks. She goes, "Is that all you've got?" and it was terrifying for me and the other gal that was there. But when she did that, it put things in perspective for me for the rest of my time, because it's not that it's not scary, but it's whether or not you take it seriously. It's whether or not you understand who you are, where you've been, what you've gone through, and whether or not you've forgiven yourself for those things. So no matter what it said to her, it couldn't get a foothold. There was no space in her for it to attack and get her to move from her agenda of getting it to move. And that's what it becomes, a battle of the wills.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it. So did the entity end up going?
It did completely. And it had an entire group with it, and it definitely went. And interestingly enough, some people, this is an interesting aspect of doing this kind of work, whether or not you are the one that is afflicted or helping to facilitate a healing. Sometimes when people have those experiences, they literally don't have much recollection of them.
Yeah.
They disassociate from the presence of this energy. And so it comes and goes, and they may not remember all the details of what happened. They just they need to sleep for 3 days and don't feel well. And then they get better and it's gone, and that's it. So
there's a fascinating energy device that a guy created about 15 or 20 years ago, and he did it as an air circulator for office buildings. But it turns out it spins the energy in a room, and when they turn it on, when you have somebody like this and have these entities, and you take Polaroid photos, you can see faces coming out of them. And
awesome.
There's some psychologists who do counseling with these people. They put the person into a light hypnotic state. They bring these entities out one by one and then talk them into to leaving. But they use one of these cameras to show each one, and then as it was gone, then the next one. And they went through 3 or 4, and it's just, wow, this is really fascinating.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about in one of your books, I saw about past life soul history and how you kind of heal some of that. Share with us a little bit of your insight of how when we come in, we're still connected to some of that history and how it can affect us and what we can do.
Absolutely. So for me as a child, I used to have dreams of burlap sacks of apples. And every time I awoke from one of these dreams, I would be in a sweat and in terror. And when I woke up, I could see the burlap sacks of apples, like my room was inundated with them. So they were very real. And then I would shake out of it, and then I would come back to where I was. And this happened over and over and over and over and over again in childhood. And then eventually in my 20s, things shifted. And I think at that point, different elements of the story began to present itself. But basically, I was a woman who was a freed slave back in the 1800s, and I was married to another man who was also a freed slave. We were put together on this a plantation that had an apple orchard, and so apples were part of the main crop. And just in that lifetime, on the night that we officially became wed, we had jumped the broom immediately upon our meeting, but eventually we had a religious wedding, and we were lynched that night. We were taken from our beds and strung up within seconds. And I finally had that traumatic recall. And from that point, like it's so interesting to look at. Well, I hate to wear things around my neck. That's one of the ways it's shown itself to me. I have always understood, like I saw through the eyes of these two spirits, who I was in that lifetime, and my husband, who was attached to me from birth until I was about 35, when I had this traumatic healing that shifted everything. Until that point, I saw through their eyes. I didn't see myself as a white girl. I saw life through their eyes. I understood how people saw me. At least I thought I did, until they left. And then I had a deeper understanding of how people saw me. But part of that healing was over so many years period of time. It was really powerful how I was able to, let me say it this way, all the ways in which this life experience shown itself in this lifetime. all the things I did, all the things I said, all the things I lived, all came from these past life imprints. They weren't who I am today, but it was opportunities for me to do the grieving that needed to happen, that was unable to happen because death came so quickly in that lifetime.
And shock, I would think, because shock in that lifetime, right? So quickly,
Yes.
so fast.
Yes.
I could see where that would be. Just like if we have a car accident where we die instantly,
Yes.
like there's shock, and you're right, grief and all that hasn't processed. Because what
Absolutely.
happened? I was 1 second I was here, the next second I was there.
Exactly. And you're stuck in that space. And then there's all the spiritual work to do to understand and to forgive people for living in their own fear and hatred. You know, it's something that you must find a way to have compassion and to release yourself of their tyranny, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, part of all this, and I'm sure you bring it up in your grief counseling, is that there's always lessons to be learned here, and depending on where the person is, helping them understand how these are opportunities to grow, rather than just walking around and saying, "Okay, God, why me?" That type of response.
Absolutely. And I love that you use the "why me," because you know what? There is a why you. Yeah. And so if you ask the question, you've got to receive the answer. You can't just ask questions and then not be willing to receive the answers, because there is always an answer. Mm-hmm. And it will always take you to a place where you can find healing and resolution.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short break here. We're going to hear some messages about Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. We'll be right back with our guest, Tracee Dunblazier.
Hi, I'm Violet Rain, Master and Teacher of Angelic Reiki at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. If you love angels, if you resonate with angels, or you're just interested in learning more about angels, most people really want to consider Angelic Reiki. But Angelic Reiki is more than just working with the angels and learning a new healing modality. It's about ascension. And when you step into Angelic Reiki, you're not only working with angels, but you're working with ascended masters and galactic healers. The angelic kingdom of light, which includes all of those, steps in and helps you be able to hold more light. And what I have found along this journey is it expands your ability to be able to hold light, which raises your frequency, which accelerates your ascension process. So the individuals that step onto Angelic Reiki are really ready to step onto their spiritual path, learn more about angels, ascended masters, galactic healers, learn possibly a new healing modality that they'll use in their life, but also they're ready for those major shifts in their lives to really be on their spiritual path and take their journey to the next level. If you've been thinking about Angelic Reiki, or you'd like to find out more about this beautiful modality, please don't hesitate to contact me, Violet, at discoveryourspiritualgifts.com, or check out our website under classes. You will find Angelic Reiki there with lots of information about this program and the benefits of taking this course. We hope to see you in class really soon, and I hope to see you at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Welcome back to Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. We're here with our guest today, Tracee Dunblazier. Well, I'd like to continue on a little bit about the people who ask, why me, and what the answer to that is. One of my favorite ones is Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote the books Conversations with God. He had his, "Why are you doing this to me, God? What am I supposed to get out of this?" And he heard a voice in his head said, "Well, what do you want to know?" And he got a pencil and a pad and started writing his questions and writing down the dictated answers, and it became 14 or 15 books. And so that was his "why is this happening to me?" answer. And
yes.
I'm sure when people sincerely ask that and open their hearts to the answer, frequently they need guidance to be able to do that, then they do get guidance to move forward.
Right. One of most interesting things, I did so for about 10 years, and what the first book, but mostly the second book and parts of the third book. The second book is Heal Your Soul History, and it's about the karmic imprints or past lives that we experience spiritual trauma from. I did a lot of traveling, and I went to the South a lot because I was very aligned with that energy in that place. And I went to Savannah, Georgia. And every time I would go to one of these places, wherever I was led to go and stay, I would, ask Spirit how I could be of service. If there, I would always do some form of meditation or clearing or cleansing wherever I was. And this particular place, I got up early one morning, about 4:30 in the morning, and sat out and waited for the sun to come up, and asked who in the neighborhood needed healing. And a few people showed up, like energetically, in the spirits. Most of them had been cleared, but there were a few that showed up. And there was a family of like, I don't know, 9 or 10 people. And there was one little boy. And I could tell that the little boy was by himself. His family was separate than he was. And as it turns out, they had all died in house fire, and everyone in his family had ascended except for him, because he kept saying, why did this happen to me? Why did I lose my family? Why did this happen to me? And him asking why, but never answering why, kept him in that state of purgatory. It kept him in the limbo place where he couldn't move. Mm-hmm. And so I accessed for him why that happened. And I don't, like, interestingly enough, there wasn't it was helping him to understand that it didn't matter why it happened. What mattered that he was able to grieve it and find forgiveness and to rejoin his family. Mm. And so that was a big learning for me. The first, being stuck in limbo when you ask why and don't answer it. And then the second piece, which was, you know what, you don't get an answer. Sorry. There isn't an answer to that. There is only forgiveness. Mm-hmm. There is only your need to forgive the fact that it happened, grieve it. And when that happens, if there's more information for you to know, you have now moved into a new realm that information can now come to you. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people feel like they need to have all the information before they can find forgiveness.
Yeah.
So sometimes, world events happen right now. And these are stories for right now, because with all of these mass shootings and major weather events, all of these different things happening, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And the learning comes when you can grieve your loss, give yourself permission to grieve that loss, to feel that loss, to experience. It is through that grief that a transformation happens that opens you up in a way that you have not opened yet. Mm-hmm. So
I think it's important for listeners to realize, we have 3 of us here where we're all experienced in this. And as working on this for 40 years, I've seen a lot, done a lot, learned a lot, and I still come across new things, and I still learn. And yes. Your experience, the fact that you've written, a number of books, indicates that you continue to learn new things and you want to share those. And so none of us are immune to saying, I've never seen that before.
Right.
So
absolutely,
it's certainly something that we all have to acknowledge, that we continue to get challenges too.
Absolutely. I mean, there's one thing, knowledge is a part of it, but then there's the phase of learning to use the knowledge that you have and using it to walk through things like guilt, shame, or fear, or hatred, or bias. Everybody has some form of personal bias, whether it's always towards themselves, but, social bias against other people. We've all been nurtured in whatever way we've been nurtured. And mm-hmm. now we're at a place where we have to start admitting that, taking an inventory about exactly what that is, exactly where it came from, and whether or not it serves us. We have to give ourselves, instead of just feeling guilt and then hiding it, or feeling ashamed or denying it, instead of doing any of those things, look at what it is and see, how it may have served your ancestors and their families, and why they used it, and whether or not that's important for you today. People see themselves constantly in a position of disempowerment.
Yeah.
And I think that is habit in our predatory world, right? Because a lot of our systems in the world, it's victim or perpetrator. You're kind of one or the other. There's all that gray area is now we're learning to bring ourselves into the middle, where nobody's a victim and nobody's a perpetrator. There just is what happened, and your ability to deal with that and move on to another paradigm away from what you don't like and towards what you want. And all of that takes self-responsibility.
Well, we talk about forgiveness, and a lot of people feel like that when you step into forgiveness, that it was okay what that person did or what happened. That's not what forgiveness is about, right? That's right. The wrong definition. Forgiveness is not about saying, hey, it was okay this happened, or hey, it was okay that you did this to me, or hey, it was okay that you hurt me. It's about, I forgive you because I'm not going to give you the power over me. And my forgiveness is I let it go, and I stand in my own power, and I am my own self, right? And I have compassion because I've done stuff that I am ashamed of, right? And I honor that, look in the mirror and say, okay, I did that. I'm human. I forgive myself. We've all done stuff, when people say, we think that because we do bad things that we're not loved and things happen. It doesn't work that way. You're loved on the other side, no matter what you do. They just love you. This is an experience. I always say it's like the Matrix game. We're here to have these experiences, and it's what we do within those.
Right.
And it's about love and standing in your power and going, I just forgive you, and walking away, right?
Yeah, forgiveness, I think, puts you at 0 point. It allows you to let go so that you can see what the pattern was that brought you there in the first place. I think that's the other thing, is that, having been, I don't even consider myself a survivor, but having been raped when I was 18 and walking through that deep period of rage and anger for about a decade, it took me a long time to forgive myself for the rage that it brought up in me. It became less about what this man did to me and more about what I did to me after, and then it also triggered all kinds of past life triggers that had enormous rage. And so I had to, my forgiveness came when I ultimately forgave myself for, and forgave myself, like, was willing to let go of the rage. I no longer needed it to protect me. I think that a lot of times we do things because, or we say things, we have emotions, we call on energies or entities because we need protection. We are fearful. We don't know how to move forward, and we need guidance. And believe it or not, denser energies can be a great guide through a very difficult and dark time. But there always comes a time when you're ready to move out of that space, and you've got to let go of whatever you attracted to get you through it, and find some peace in that.
Absolutely. I think that's really important. Share with us, Tracee, if somebody wanted to work with you, what are some of the things you offer? And talk about your books again, because you have your books out there so that people know. How can they find those and connect with you? What's the best way to do that?
Well, you can find me at TraceeDunblazier.com. I'm Tracee with 2 E's. You see it on my little screen right there. But TraceeDunblazier.com. You can find my books anywhere books are sold. Barnes & Noble, Amazon. I love supporting small independent stores as an independent author and publisher. It's really important to support the indies. work that I do whatever a person needs. That, that one of the things, like defining different work that I do was really difficult for me, because I find that people come, and I've had a lot of life experiences. I'm not afraid of the challenging things or the darkness. So I have a lot of clients that come to me to address those things. I do a lot of hauntings and house clearings and people clearings, and I'm happy to do them. But I will, grief counseling, I'll do whatever a person needs. I find that when somebody sits in my presence as an empath, I can sense what that is, and I always get a directive as to the next plot point on the map, the next place to go, to the information we need to cause a healing. And one thing I do know is that I find when I work with people, I don't, it's not because of me, but I find by the time people find me, I'm pretty much a straight shooter. And I wouldn't say that I'm harsh.
You're upfront.
I'm upfront. And I can be fun and funny, but it's important to be radically accepting of who you are. And so sometimes you just have to lay it out on the table. And I do that. And so by the time people get to me, they will have done a lot of other work to get to that place. And usually that will cause some sort of major healing /healing crisis that will allow them to level up to a whole new perspective. And so that's good. And whatever someone needs, I do soul retrieval, I do entity release, I do meditation, I do past life reading. Soul retrieval, if people don't know what that is, that it's basically accessing the different aspects of yourself that are lost in certain traumatic events. So you bring that, and that can happen over time and space. And so for my books, I'm going to show you this one. This is Conquer Your Karmic Relationships. And it's the third in the series of the Demon Slayer's Handbook series. And if anybody wants a Demon Slayer's Handbook series box set, I was very excited. I got, I have a few pieces of that I got as a special 5-year anniversary of the series. So I have a box set available to people that they can get through me only, through my website.
Cool. I'll have to check that out. I want a box set. I love books.
Good.
I got books everywhere. I'm a book collector.
I am too. Just one more thing. I have a new book coming out in spring of next year. It's called Transformative Grief. And it's going to be on the process of grief and helping people understand that grief happens every day and we sweep it under the rug. And so learning how to become aware of the little grief responses that we have will help keep us from having big grief responses. Anyway, and so I'm very excited about that coming up, because I feel like it's really, I know that all of us sometimes feel so powerless to make a dent in the ridiculous that is happening right now. and so I felt like this book was, I want this book to at least carve out a little space to give people freedom to honor their emotions and the messages our emotions have us.
I love that. And, there are lots of people dealing with emotions right now with everything going on in the world. It's hard not to have those, right? And Absolutely. It affects all of us, right? Because we are part of the collective. So Tracee, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing. I look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully in June, here at INET. So I will look to come up and introduce myself and say hi. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thanks for listening today. And please stay with us for messages from several of our practitioners at DYSG. Have a great week.
Hi, I'm Nikki Milton. I am the Center Manager and Marketing Manager here at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. I'm here 2 days a week on Mondays and Fridays, marketing this beautiful center and making sure that the center is up to standard for all you lovely guests who will hopefully come and visit us soon. I also own a content marketing agency, so I'm a teacher here in the space because I have a real passion for helping the spiritual business owners in this community learn how to brand and market their businesses. So I run a business class series every year on branding and marketing and social media classes, as well as a full strategy workshop towards the end of the year to help you get your business in line for the upcoming year. And that is what I do here at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
I am Lisa Laney, two-time international best-selling author, teacher, intuitive artist, reader, and healer at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. I am a very creative, artistic person who has been an intuitive empath my whole life. As a child, I was always aware of energy. I could detect shifts as people entered the room, which I thought all people could do. I didn't realize I was an empath until much later in life. I have studied various modalities, attended several retreats to peel back layers of childhood experiences to create a toolbox I use to navigate this world with intention. I am now pairing my intuitive gifts with my creativity to live an intentional life and empower other women to shine their brightest light, to manifest an abundant life with creativity and intention. If this resonates with you, join me at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts the first Thursday of each month at 6:30 at my Women's Intention Play Shops. The focus of each class varies on a different intention to heal, inspire, and empower each of you with a simple art project. In this class, we set the intention into what you create, so when you bring it home, you are reminded of what you are manifesting or releasing each time you look at it. This keeps the energy moving, which helps you create a more empowered version of yourself. If you prefer one-on-one time, I offer intuitive tree readings. You simply draw me a tree any way you feel guided. Coupled with your intention, we edit the tree so you have a visual of how you want to create a life of joyous empowerment. If this is calling you, I can be reached at 720-257-9441 or at lisaelani.com. Tap into your inner magic to create an amazing toolbox of your own by joining me, Lisa Laney, at Discover Your Spiritual Gift.
Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio.